I've like lost jobs fully, especially when I was in New York, when I was, in my early 20s, like just off of my voice, because they wouldn't even look at my resume where like professionally I can photograph more masculine or kind of give you that vintage Ralph Lauren guy. But if they heard me talking to casting, already I was cut out. Like, I mean, I've been asked to leave set before because me and the girl were bonding in the chair and like I was helping her out. They hadn't even let us go on set to like deliver what we were going to do. And they were like, oh yeah, I just don't think it's going to work. And blah. Pretty much they're saying it's like, because in their eyes then they see you as too feminine, or really what they're not trying to say. The big scooting around the bush is like, oh, you're too gay for like this role or something, whatever that means.
Welcome to the Business of Beauty podcast, where we talk money with people who work in beauty-based industries. Today, I am joined by my longtime good friend, Ryan Conover, to talk everything modeling, interior design, photography, creative direction,
illustration, beauty,
everything. He does it all. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad you're doing this. I feel like people get to really see your true personality and how fabulous you are.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
That means a lot. When I was thinking of people to bring onto this podcast, you instantly came to mind because
oh my gosh.
You are like the definition of basically a beauty entrepreneur. Like anything that touches beauty, artwork, you're involved in. You do so many different things, and you have such a good business mindset about all of it.
No, that means a lot. And it's kind of, that's how when people ask, what you're saying, everyone's like, that seems like so many hats you wear. And like, maybe my mom will joke and say maybe it's just because I'm a control freak, because it's like if I'm on set, I like to cast the talent who I connect with, and it has to be more than just a look, and I want to believe in them and give them a character, but then I also want to design their outfit. I want to be in control of their hair and makeup because that goes with the outfit, and then of course where they're sitting or posing. And so I'm like, really it's just one fantasy. So with touching everything on beauty, if it's in a form of a paintbrush, if it's in a form of styling a room, styling for someone on set, or even myself in something, it's like just coming from the imagination or from drawing it from paper into the real world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. So let's go back to the very early Ryan days growing up. Did you always know that you were going to go into some sort of creative field?
Oh yeah. Ironically, most people wouldn't believe, I think maybe with how it fronts or if they've seen my work, that I'm naturally a very extremely shy person, especially growing up. To me, you don't know something you're doing is necessarily in society wrong until someone tells you. So I was naturally always attracted to ribbons, tutus, Disney princesses, Barbie especially. I mean, I was lucky enough to have a mom when we walked down Toys R Us. She was like, okay, pick your aisle essentially. And I'll never forget the day when I hit that pink aisle and I was like, oh my God, you can be anything you want through this doll. But yeah, so just it again started from paper, and then it led to Barbie, where I was dressing her at first, and then that wasn't enough, so I'd take her face off with fingernail polish remover, and I would.
You can do that?
It slides right off.
Wow, so cool.
Yeah, and I would just want to like paint it on just to make her a little more realistic, and I would always be saving my allowance up to go get Italian Vogue, so I'd want her to look a little more like the women I'd seen in those magazines, and beauty marks, and then I had to change her hair, and so it became like that was my canvas, and then as I got older, it was my cousins and braiding their hair, and then models on set. So I was always like a run before I learned how to walk kind of guy.
And was your family always supportive of your creative endeavors, even from that age?
My mom will joke and say, I'm from a very fabulous, big Italian family. But she's like, when people ask her, they're like, oh, what was it like growing up with Ryan? She's like, well, if I didn't give him the materials, the curtains, or like my clothes were up for like the next on the cutting block, literally. Like I would just go in because I had to get out of my system. And so my mom's brother was a really big artist and expressed himself more through ink drawings and like paintings and stuff, where I used myself a lot as the canvas. And maybe that is a form too of like, creating characters. And I've always been very inspired by fairy tales and once upon a time narratives. And so I'd be like, who am I today? And go with that. And then of course you get into later Ryan years, when we get into like the 2000s and teen boppers, that's when the smoky eyes and the makeup and the matte counter stuff started getting in. So it was a whole nother form of expression. So yeah, I was really lucky that my mom always just supported that. If anything, she would just pull me aside and be like, let's learn to blend, because I am guilty as well.
So she knows a thing or two about makeup as well.
She's always been, my mom's, I always say, has been a woman in a man's position in Prada heels. Like she's been way before her time. she's always, that's what inspired me too. I would sit in the sink and watch her do this transformation of getting ready. And she was really smart, actually. Now that I look back, she kind of was so supportive of it because she would let me play with her makeup and then kind of play on her, which was a mess at first, you know? And then by the time I was like 8 or 9, I was professionally getting her ready for her meetings, and that was our exchange of work. So she taught me that work ethic, like, okay, you want to go to the movies? You want to go buy fabric to make a dress? Like, you get me ready for these 3 meetings and this like event I have, you help me style my clothes, and then I'll pay you this much.
Wow,
So
you had your first client at, how old were you, 8, 9 years old, you said?
I feel like right when I came out of her, she's always
Oh my
been,
God.
I can't talk highly enough about her. We have a special connection, and she's always really just, you know, been a great test dummy too. I mean, I put her through some wild curls and stuff, but now we have it on lock.
Oh, good.
I was like, that's smart though. She really just trained her own personal glam squad.
Yeah.
That's like sneaky, but good.
I know, that's great. And very interesting that you got into it so early on. Yeah, a lot of people have, I feel like, find makeup later in their lives. Like I didn't put on makeup for the first time until, I don't even know, I was halfway through high school or something.
Totally.
And it was just like in your blood, it seems. And not just makeup, because you were doing your Barbie fashion designs and making clothes for yourself and for others, I assume, as well.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, you know, especially I feel like in the time we were growing up, you know, we're right around the same age of like, there was very black and white of like, you rather the Abercrombie kid, the Roxy girl, or like it was just so like, this is the only way to style something, you know, with how the brands were putting things out. And to me, you know, I always kind of mix between femininity and then having like a masculine shoulder. I just love a like dichotomy moment. And so there was nothing like that out there. So, and you know, again, reading these, I'm from the Far East Side in Washington, where it's very white picket fencey, kind of that crew. Reading Italian Vogue and British Vogue and seeing all these high-end avant-garde designs, it was kind of like, things would just kind of start before I even knew it. Like I was like sewing on, you know, real flowers to a jacket just because it wasn't offered anywhere. So I kind of had to start making my own things because there was nothing I would want to shop. And it was like, back then it was so nerve-wracking to go in the girls section. Yeah. So my mom was cool enough to like, you know, sneak the Abercrombie girl jeans, but then even that was enough. I'd like cut up another pair of jeans and sew that on top of it. And wow. The irony of everything is I thought I was like blending in doing all that. And I thought I was like, oh, I don't know why. I just needed to wear this like huge belled, crazy trouser to 7th grade and a smoky eye because that was the fantasy that day.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Did you have the confidence back then to wear that in school? Did you go to public school or a private school?
Full public school.
And you rocked your high fashion whatevers?
Yeah, I kind of, you know, it started slow. Like, again, whatever I used myself as a canvas, it started developing. But then I realized even when I was toning it down, people were still talking about me. And I think we had kind of touched on it earlier just when we were saying hello again, but like fame's always been a really strange concept to me because I was always like of a subject from as long as I can remember of people having a comment of like even my mom pushing me around in the grocery store in this very conservative town like in a tutu, and her daughter had like a fire truck. Like everyone had a comment about it. And so there was always someone looking or talking or had such an opinion about what you're wearing. So at that age, by the time I got to 7th grade, I was like, well, if everyone's talking about it anyway, I might as well just do whatever the hell I want.
That's such a good perspective to have. And even from that age, I can't believe you were able to think like that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to like, again, say it's the shy part of me is like, I laugh now with everything I've done. And I'm like, I just want to go hug that kid because that's so awesome that he put himself out there like that. But there was a part of me that it couldn't stop. Like the expression and needing to get that out of the system was more than like the ridiculing or like the backlash of anyone interested. I think if you wear it with confidence and, you know, I'm up against people that were wearing like basketball shorts and open-toed sandals with socks. Yeah. Like I was like, okay, like it didn't bother me that you were wearing that, but you would never see me in that.
Exactly.
You know?
Did you, just out of curiosity, did you feel that you couldn't perform at school if you dressed lazy? Because that's totally how I felt too. I would at least try a little bit, and I see these kids rolling up in their sweatpants, and I'm like, I couldn't focus on my schooling if I was dressed in sweatpants.
110%. For me, it was like, again, my mom comes back into play. She's like, oh, Ryan only went to school to use it as a runway. Like, I had no interest in the academics. So I was like, I don't need to know what X is. I don't need to know the biology. Like, I know the human body by my eyes. Like, but I was just like, No, I just was using it as training practice to just walk down the halls.
So you were not a very book smart kid growing up.
I can pick up anything pretty quick.
Or I'll say school wise, because
Yeah.
I think it's really important to separate actual intelligence from how you perform in school, because people can get horrible GPAs or something, for example, and then be some of the most smart people in the world. So
couldn't agree more. But no, I joke all the time too that I'm probably like A through Z on the spectrum, just not diagnosed.
Yeah.
But it was just for something that didn't interest me. Like I have the utmost respect always. And it kind of full circles to even being able to present that way at such a young age, is it always confused me because I'm such a leader and supportive of anyone passionate about something. It's like my biggest like turn on, or I promote anyone that does something. Like even like when you reached out about this, I was like, that's so awesome. Like, you know, so many people talk about doing a podcast, but are they actually out there doing it and putting themselves out there like you are? And I would always promote people if they were really good at math. I would like be mind blown. If they want to talk about it for 4 hours to me, I'm like, I love their passion behind it, but I had no interest. So sitting in class and someone's like, figure this problem out, I was like, it's not happening. Like my mind was on, you know, dressing Naomi Campbell or something.
Right.
So it wasn't going to happen.
you've always, I mean, even from the early days of knowing you, I feel like you have always been such a big dreamer. And I'm sure you had that growing up as well. And now it must feel pretty special to have like kind of talked that all into reality. Okay, so I do want to get more into the business side of things. So let's start from the beginning. When is the first time that you actually made money off of your creative juices?
I have to give a shout out to Victoria Roberts, is one of my mom's dearest and longtime best friends, and she has always been an insane businesswoman. But in the University Village here in Seattle, right when it was first opening up, now it's this huge like outdoor shopping mall, kind of its only thing in Seattle. But she was an original store called Zovo Lingerie, and it was a very high-end lingerie store, nothing Seattle had ever seen. And back to the Barbies, I was every Christmas, my little cousins, who were always my inspirations, Lauren and Brooke, I would like take their dolls they were going to throw away because I was at an older age, and then I would like couture them out and give them as Christmas presents again to them. They would just display them on their shelves.
That's
and
so cute.
It was always such a fun time and a fun challenge, right? I always called like my Project Runway challenge because these dolls would be mangled,
Yeah,
like ready for the garbage, and then they would get them back and think it wasn't at all anything. So we had a Christmas party, and Victoria, they were on display there because they just opened them, and she's like, my mom's name is Amy, and she was like, Amy, you just spent ridiculous money on these dolls. Like, they're the most, you know, wild things I've ever seen Mattel do. Like, how much did you drop on these? And she's like, what are you talking about? She's like, no, those are Ryan's new ones this year. And she was just very humbly, I was like, she was so impressed. She's like, I want my store window display to open the store in his Barbie dolls.
Aww.
So she was the first one to really taught me of merging art and an expression into like a commercial window display. And I had just been to New York that year. I think I was 12 at this point. And I'd seen the Bergdorf window displays, and it was right around Christmas time, so they were just like, blew my mind. Like, to capture fantasy, again, my love for fashion, in a still moment. And so it only took about, again, maybe it's a control freak, Ingle is her husband, who was helping me install everything, and not even an hour in, he was like, here's the screw gun, here's the this, like, I'm not going to do it the way you want, because, you know, he was just trying to help a 12-year-old out, and I was like, no, it needs to be a little more up, and I think the screw needs to be there, so I like to figure it out when I'm in there.
Yeah.
If it's anything. So I guess really like from a young age, I was like 12 when I did my first big window display, and I got to make a little splash here in Seattle. Everyone was like, what is this?
Right.
And then, you know, worked up to mannequins and been figuring it out ever since.
Yeah. So since you're so entrepreneurial and have been since it sounds like a very young age, is it hard for you to work for somebody else? And have you ever had another job like outside of this industry where you were working what most people call a regular job, you know, a desk job or whatever, restaurant?
For sure. I've definitely worked all kinds of things. I guess to answer the first part, I'm great with working with people. The hardest part, and I think even anytime I've worked with an agency and they throw me on set, the hardest part for me is to not that it's overstepping, but let go. Like when I'm watching people, I don't know how else to politically correct say this, when I can just see it can always be better. I always push things when I'm like, and especially like if we were on set and it was a very commercial client, and we kind of both know we've been on many sets like where they normally lay, but it's like, and if we knew the photographer, like, well, we're still going to give you that effect, but like you have like India on set. She can move and she can, I know how to carve your face out just right, where it's like, let's have it's still your brand, but elevated. Yeah. And sometimes you have to think, but it's rare, more than the client, because they're so used to staying in the comfort zone. So for me, it is really hard to kind of stay boxed in, and you have to kind of secretly go around the mulberry bush and then trick them, and then they see it and they're like, oh, that's the product we want. And then you show them, like, if you post this photo versus this photo, they're always going to pick the one you put more work into, because people, I feel like, can really feel that energy. So I guess to answer, it can be. That's why I started my own business, because it's like I just like to be able to deliver and bring in a great team I work well with and deliver a solid vision versus work around someone kind of trying to vanilla it up.
Yeah. So when someone asks you today, just that you meet at a coffee shop or whatever,
okay,
what your career is, what do you do for a living? What's your like short elevator speech?
Would probably have to start with like a slapstick and be like, professional high stakes dress up.
They'd be like, excuse me?
Yeah, I'd be like part-time mannequin. And no, for someone to understand, I'd say like creative director and designer, because design is so broad, but it's hard to explain. Really what I'm trying to do, especially with my interior, is remind people of that avant-garde hand touched. So anything I do, anything you see even behind us, if you see a clip, I don't know.
Let's pimp out the artwork and the chairs.
What you're sitting. So I like, you have to interact with it. Like down from this is, custom dyed fabric to the cut of the chair to even kind of shaping the table behind us. Like I just like it to where you're involved in a hand touched product. Even from sets I'm on and stuff, it's, from hand doing the makeup on your face, but you can feel that extra special. So I guess it's breaking that mold of like someone calling themselves, a designer, and they put like white subway tile and a fig tree in a room.
Yeah.
Not to
I mean, your style. Hey.
What?
Yes, your design style, even just being in your home, I can tell is so unique and elevated.
Oh my gosh, you look up and it's like something's gonna hit you.
I cannot wait to see your studio whenever it's officially up and running.
Oh my gosh.
So I did a little research on it myself this morning and learned so much. You call it your design studio, and what exactly is it, and what services are you going to offer there? Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty much like we were saying with the representation. You can book me for all the tabs I do. So interior design is what I've been mainly focusing on right now, because I think it's been a really fun adventure to like put people, like I was saying, in a room that's like out of my imagination. So when I design something, you're not taken out of the fantasy at any angle you turn. Mm-hmm. Like I think people forget a lot of corners. And it's kind of, as much as I love my Disney princesses, it's breaking the Disney mold, if you will, where like you go there and like the set, it looks like it, but then it's fake. You tap on it and you can just push the like cardboard down, essentially, It's taking it from even like a fashion set into a real life experience. And so I'd say you can book me for, of course, you want me in front of the camera to rock it out, or for me to be able to take a brand and fully conceptualized a photo shoot and branding for you, or commission an art piece, or do custom walls and furniture.
Yeah, the interior design stuff is just incredible. I mean,
I appreciate that.
You're so good at that. And when did you get into that after all your other endeavors? Like the actual home design or whatever I don't know what you call it.
No, it's right there. I mean, I've always been playing with rooms, and it really, when it hit hard was when the pandemic hit, because we were all stuck somewhere, and I'd always been playing around with stuff, and that's when I signed on to my design studio, and it was just this white little rectangle, and I was like, I can really show exactly what I want to say here, and the worlds that exist in my head. And then it went from my studio and then kind of trickled off into my place. And then people, a lot of the times I've realized with my design, always when they first commit is their bathrooms. But I get it. It's because it's a committal thing, and people like to drink, like, if they have a spare bathroom, especially, it's kind of that one place you can close. And like, it's such a small space that people will have a little more fun. They'll do a color they wouldn't normally do in like a big living room, or they'll like, let me do a hand painted wall that everyone thinks is like wallpaper or something. And it always starts there.
Is this wallpaper?
No, it's all hand painted.
Oh my God.
Hand painted from every little psycho spot you see in there.
Oh, that is insane.
Yeah, I don't use any wallpaper. Everything is
How could you?
No.
You're such an artist.
It takes up a majority of my time, but yeah, I guess the pandemic really took it off because I'm like, well, if we're around these spaces, and I think the real shows how psycho I am. It takes all this for me to be inspired. I was like, I need to have places that inspire me to want to put other work out there, and I wasn't seeing much of that. So I'm like, well, you're the only person that can do it. So during the process, just like you with this podcast, like it's become the joke of my family. Like I'm a full-time electrician, a plumber. I mean, I do my own bulldozing, like you name it. God. And I do it in my crazy Ryan outfits. Like it's quite a sight to see.
Wow. That's amazing. You just do so many different things. You get asked all the time how you juggle everything, but as somebody who has been known to spread myself a little too thin and not thick enough in any areas, how do you manage to keep your finances up, keep your inspiration up, like stay going when you're doing so many different things?
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the tale as old as time question for creatives?
Yeah.
Definitely it's been the biggest of all the things I've done. The past like 2.5 years have been the biggest learning curve ever, especially on the more the business front. It's like how not only do you create the product, right, but how do you bring in people who not only are going to do the price point worth the work you're putting into it, but so you both feel good at the end of the day when you walk away from it. Because secret, I'll always put in more work than I get paid for because I can't stop. But
I'm sure you do. And that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you because everything that you do is so hand-touched and so elevated and so personalized. You must have to charge a premium compared to other people in your industry. Do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix is what I try and show people is, especially now, little plug here, I just did my first public space. I've been only doing private clients when I have like at Valentina's Cafe, even when I approached them because I loved the building and I knew that it was new ownership. And you have to kind of work out because, it when it's like couture avant-garde, it can go through the roof. But I really want it to still be a tangible thing that people get to experience. But like I said, still make sure I'm feeling good about it because it's like the amount of hours, and it's not just that you go into a project like other jobs. It's like it fully consumes me. I mean, I'm up at night. I don't sleep.
And how long does that take? Like take that particular project as an example. How many hours does that take?
Oh my God. I mean, just the 2 bathrooms alone where we started. Again, I was like, I'm doing the cafe. And he's like, no, the bathrooms first. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, how far do you want me to push the bathrooms? He's like, I want the full Ryan James effect. And I was like, okay. I mean, just one bathroom can be, way more than 60 hours. And like, it's like I'm starting from 7 a.m. and sometimes I left the coffee shop at like 5 a.m., slept for 2 hours, came back, because I'm doing it such a short period too, because I'm trying to show them. So I guess to answer your question, I try and show them that, because I work with so many, everything I use in all my projects, if I'm not custom making it, it's all vintage or secondhand. I don't use anything new. Wow. I like to show the beauty and also the hunt of finding something. It could be just a single bit of a curve from like an old beam that looks like you should throw it out, but then I like to be able to make it. It's very my Ariel in me. It's my gadgets and gizmos, and I can find the beauty within it. So instead of like, I can save them like thousands and thousands of dollars on furniture because it's more the time you're paying for me to put into that.
Yeah, because you still have to also go out and find the stuff, and that takes time. And you have to charge for that time as well, I guess. Oh
my gosh, yeah. It's hard to explain to people. Everyone, we joke, hopefully in the next few months, I'll be able to get a new car with like an actual Jeep size because I have this little red sports car. And when I tell you, I'll have to share photos with you after. The amount of stuff in Tetrising I've done. I mean, her name's Dorothy, like the Ruby Slippers. And
cute.
She has carried marble tables, couches. I mean,
where? Like I strap it on the roof?
No, I'm like a sight to see around Ballard. This one guy stopped in his big truck and offered to help me once because he'd seen me 3 times in the week loading all this stuff there. And he was like, and he even joked, he's like, your shoe choice is questionable. Because I'm always coming from something, so I have like a 4-inch leather boot on. And he's like, but I just saw you determined at that gas station, just strapping it on and when it was going to slide off. And you just go, he's like, do you want to borrow my truck for a day? And I was like, thank you, sir. What was your name? And he totally helped out for a whole 24 hours and I got all my runs done.
Wow. Well, that was very sweet of him.
Very sweet. I was like, there's nice people in the world. What?
They do exist.
They're rare,
they do exist.
But they're there.
All right. So we were kind of talking about how you're your own boss and you're an entrepreneur and you obviously work hard for yourself. I always say that nobody works harder for you than you do if you're, having this entrepreneurial spirit like we have. Have you struggled to find people in your community and like on your support team who will put that extra love and attention into you?
From all the different sectors I've got to work in, I think that in the industry we both worked in like fashion or in modeling, there is this tendency that the industry makes you feel that, you're just lucky to be considered or you're lucky to be there, which is something you try to break. And especially when you do more things outside of that, or you're breaking any mold that they have pre-notion set, it's been a really big struggle. I feel like when people ask, it's kind of a bit of a jab question, because it's a question I don't know how to answer without feeling hurt myself, of when people are like, oh, you should be here. Why don't people know this about you? And it's not blaming representation. I just have no idea what it's like to actually be represented fully like that, when I've been very intimately with many agencies where I've helped so many girlfriends get signed and see them succeed in the effort people put into them with maybe just one thing they do, versus it's like, I'm always kind of the put me in coach mentality. I'm like, even if I don't know how to do it, like, I'm not even just going to learn it. I want to be the best at it and like show you, and I'll do all the work for it. And then they still don't ever put you in.
Yeah.
There.
I mean, like we were talking about earlier, I don't think the agencies necessarily care how much of a like hard worker you are, like how you actually perform on set. A lot of times with modeling, you're booked for your face. And I get, directly booked from clients, and they haven't even met me. They don't know how I move on set. And they don't know, you move amazing on set too, and you have all these other talents, but they might not even know that when they're just browsing the agency website. Yeah,
and that's what I'm, for what I'm trying to do, and even the fuller picture, which I can leak here, is like, I would love to, be in a position with everything I do. It's really gearing up for one day. Like, I'd love to be, a major creative director for a fashion magazine. And
you would be so great at it.
I would just like love it. And I'd get to call up people that have really inspired me and be able to use that, because I think that's absolutely kind of a BS excuse. Like, not to put you on the spot, but like, years ago, you are Miss America's Next Top Model. And I got to, you had come back from the secret endeavor you were on, and it was released, you could finally tell people like, oh, I'm going to be on the show, when they had reprised the show. And you had like this cute we had like a launch party for you with the agency we were both signed with. And I walked right up to you and I was like, I know you won. And you were like, you couldn't say anything. You should get an Academy Award, at least nomination, for you didn't wear it on your face. And you're like, oh, Ryan, you're so silly. Like, blah, blah. Like,
I didn't show it at all. I've been told that I'm so expressive in my like reactions. So I'm surprised that I held it together.
You were like, oh, you just kept blowing it off. But I just looked at you. I was like, no, because again, this has a full circle of, I've got to see you on set. And, I love a juxtaposition of how, you can carry yourself and you're so down ho, and you can go on the streets and just sneak right in and be like, if you will, girl next door and like that buddy. But then when I've seen you go on set, and it's like, girls have no idea you can like become this other person. And that's the power of being a professional, is you can turn that switch on. And like, at least around, the SMG world that you were originally represented by and stuff, like me growing up, I knew your smize. Like, everyone in the Seattle area was like, there was a very India distinct, like, you could just tell a story with your eyes. And then Macklin, back to that photographer, I remember he's like, I really want you to work with this girl, because he knows I like people that, the word we use is activate. It's like, you're kind of on set, you can be like joking, talking about whatever, but then it's like lights, camera, action, and it's just like boom. And it's that superstar effect that I do think should be celebrated. I think when people try and just like use people as, people don't really commit to like building stars anymore. It's just very the right now. And that's because the algorithm, they'll just slide through. And it's my mission to kind of pull back and really showcase those talents. And one day, if I was, or will and I am, manifestation.
Exactly.
The director, of a huge magazine, I really want to showcase that, because I always say, quote me till the day ends on my Eat True Hollywood story one day, is I say, if you believe your audience is dumb, you've already lost. Like, Disney could take a big listen to that, because them trying to play off, this sounds like a sidebar, but like nostalgic, and they don't put the same heart they did in like the Renaissance area, with these live actions they're making. They don't have that same oomph. And that's just an example I'm trying to show, because when there's a whole team of creatives hand drawing and thinking of every single motion they draw to like a character, like an Ariel or something, and there's all this talent and heart behind it and every thought she's on screen, it's like that's why animation can stand the test of time, because there's heart behind it versus like them just trying to slap some CGI and be like, that's a wrap, it's good, people are going to pay for it.
Yeah. So I love all of that. I completely agree. And I wanted to know, when you know that you have all this creativity inside you and you are so talented at what you do and you can do the makeup and the styling and the design and the modeling, how do you feel when you get booked for a job that is like your basic, as like you use the reference Abercrombie or something, just like guy next door, or maybe you're shooting with another girl and you have to be like this hot sexy dude with the girl, and like, how do you feel getting booked for those types of jobs?
Yeah, it's definitely it's funny, as well, we're doing a podcast, so I mean, I guess they can hear my voice. I've like lost jobs fully, especially when I was in New York, when I was, you know, in my early 20s, like just off of my voice, because they wouldn't even look at my resume, where like professionally I can photograph, you know, a lot more masculine, or kind of give you that vintage Ralph Lauren guy. But if they heard me talking to casting, already I was cut out. Like, I mean, I've been asked to leave set before because me and the girl were having like, not even unprofessionally, like we were just like bonding in the chair, and like I was helping her out, and they saw this more of like, they hadn't even let us go on set to like deliver what we were going to do. And they were like, oh yeah, I just don't think it's gonna work. And well, pretty much they're saying it's like, because in their eyes then they see you as too feminine, or really what they're not trying to say, the big scooting around the bush is like, oh, you're too gay for like this role or something, whatever that means.
But they don't even know that you can activate and become whatever character they need you to become.
Yeah, and I think it circles back to even like representation, or like an agency trying to like go to bat for you, or like, I think you always do maybe what you wish you always had. It's like when I think of like 6-year-old Ryan, like that's when like a girl I'm really inspired by, or if it's guy, but I find myself always rooting for the girls that I see get walked over, or like people don't see it. It's like the diamonds in the rough that I'm like, this is where your focus should be. Like you should be investing your time, and like, because it's not even that they're just beautiful, of course, in a photo, but it's like who they are. And like, I think that's what we should be investing in, not this like, you know, and it is, I guess I'm full circling answering your question. The more frustrating part, I think, in anyone that's entrepreneuring and has so much they want to say or give to the world, and you watch, the worst thing you can do is compare, but you watch someone who necessarily doesn't have even an ounce of maybe a trait or a talent, dare I say, and you see them not just succeeding, like these companies you've dreamed to work with, like since before I could even imagine getting on a plane to go out to fly and see them, like putting them right as the front campaign people, and like we get to work right in the scenes where I've been on set with these people, and they're not just kind of atrocious to work with, like whole people, like 4 hours delay a set, like they show up and they're just hungover or whatever. It's just the professionalism there, but they'll still use it because everything's become a number. Like, oh, they have this many followers or that. And so I'm trying to show in my little whimsical way, like, invest in talent, and I promise you the audience will gravitate towards that. It might take a little more of a trail, and at first it'll be the, you know, the slow whisper, but people always gravitate, and they always, I mean, if you look back to, I'm going to talk fairy tales real quick again, okay. But I promise it's my biggest standpoint, because they both meant so much to me. Like my two biggest movies that affected my life, and not just for the leads, but are The Wizard of Oz with Judy Garland and The Little Mermaid with Ariel. Both
The Wizard of Oz is my mom's favorite.
Oh, I love that. But it's just, I mean, I can go on till the day ends about this, but the two most famous songs that are like in the world, that most recognized around the world, are Somewhere Over the Rainbow and Part of Your World, right? Mm-hmm. Both those songs were, by the head execs, were both not just kind of like forcefully, like they weren't going to make the movies because they wanted them pulled. Because they said, oh, we're not, for Judy, they were like, we're not going to have our lead actress. I mean, don't get me started on just how it was to get Judy as the lead. That's a whole other story for another day. But they were like, oh, we can't have our star sing in a barn and the song's too slow. And the same with Ariel, they said a kid yawned in a preview of it. And they were like, a 4-year-old's just yawning with who knows what they did that day. And luckily there was some fabulous, you know, gung-ho, going to stick to their vision, gay men behind both these characters. And you have the talents like Judy, who was very forward, and Jodie Benson, who, Jodie, if you ever hear this, I love you so much, that were like, this means everything. No one cares about Ariel if you don't hear, I mean, everyone gives her so much crap for, oh, giving up her voice to go see a man. I'm like, did you watch the same movie I did? She's the longest in Disney history, longest song, solo song. It's almost 3 minutes. that she sings about wanting something more than where she's at way before, like 4 months before she meets the prince. He's just the poetic justice that makes her make like the final decision to like go for it, because then she's like, oh, I have a reason to now. Versus the same as Somewhere with a Rainbow. And if you let those head execs who only look at numbers take that away from their movies, you don't have any reason to root for these leading women. And those are the most famous parts that made them the most successful. Yeah. So it's always my point, like, those artists had to fight and fight and fight, and they're like, we'll pull the whole movie, we'll pull that out, we have, you know, in contract, you won't be able to use any of the stuff we worked on for 6 months. And if they didn't risk their livelihoods and, you know, to inspire someone like me one day. So I kind of circulate that back to people who try to push back, like, well, what's the point? Why do a hand-painted wall for somewhere that you can't, you know, if you're renting somewhere, which I...
Oh my gosh.
I know.
They'll probably keep it like this, honestly, to show it to the next person.
I mean, let's hope so. Or I'm like, hey, call me, let's Airbnb it out, and we can go in contract together.
Yeah, exactly.
But
always business thinking.
Always, you got to, because it's like, who else is going to look for your back? But I just use that as an example of like, you can't imagine those movies without, so just let the people, especially that earned their spot there, do what they're supposed to do.
I think that whole concept is just something that's been kind of lost in, especially these recent years. Everyone needs fast, quick. They have very short attention spans. They have tight budgets. They're trying to get things as cheap as they can and not...
Most effect for cheapest.
Yeah, exactly. And you pay for what you get. And so...
And I unfortunately, which maybe bites us in the foot too, and I feel like you and I kind of break that mold, is like, I have to be better at what that question you asked before, of when it's like... I feel like whenever you and I are set, it's like, we know even if it's a low check, we're still going to deliver like the max. Like, I treat everything, I joke and say, like, no matter what I'm booked for, even when it's like something I don't want to be, I treat it like it's my front cover Vogue, because at the end of the day, it's like, that's my name on it. Even if it's in the smallest credit, I want anyone I worked with that day to come out feeling good. Yeah.
And like taking your ego out of it as well, and just being like, whatever client this is, I'm still going to give my best and look my best, because I want to present myself as this talented person that I am.
Yeah, and the hard part is from the client, then we still have to trace down our checks after you deliver that effect.
Thank you for reminding me what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say, because we got talking about, you know, paying for good services and things like that. Yeah, so as creatives, it is just known that you have to chase after checks. Let's have a contest. A really sad contest. What is the longest you've ever had to wait to be paid?
I mean, almost a year. I mean, I'm sure because you work multiple on like the modeling front. I know with you've had more like modeling jobs and stuff, where like mine has been more direct clients one-on-one. And it's not just that it was a year, it's like you have to tooth and nail it.
Oh yeah. I talk to them, you know, every month. Mine's also a year. So
okay.
And by the way,
yours might be longer.
No, it's luckily only a year. But by the way,
can you imagine someone else saying that though? Can we just bring that back?
Yeah.
Like how casual you just said that. Like, oh, luckily only a year. If you talk to any person, an office job, a barista, even any job in the world, if you told them like, oh, you're gonna work your ass off for this whole entire week, like you will not see anyone this whole week, and you won't even see the pay for it from a year from now. No one would take that job.
You wouldn't accept the job, yeah.
People would be like, especially in today's world, like who does that?
Yeah. And that's what I always say to my clients who do pay late. I'm never rude to them, like to the point where I'm burning bridges.
For sure.
But I kind of lightly nudge them and say, just so you know, with future people that you work with, no problem if you're going to take a year to pay. That's absolutely no problem. But you do need to let those people know ahead of time.
Transparency is everything. Or like at least you need to break it up in segments, right? So that someone can account for that check. Because not everyone is sitting around here going like, that check might be your rent, your like a project you're trying to invest in. Like no one knows what anyone else has going on. So it's more the principle of the matter. So the whole thing I'm trying to break too here, and it has not been easy. These past 2 years have really tested me. I'm like, be careful what you wish for, because I was like, again, a run before I learned how to walk guy, and I was like, I want to ask the universe, like I want to, you know, really front on the business side by yourself. And it gave me a masterclass real quick with some really hard clients, in just the form of maybe because they see you actively like acting in your passion, that my new kind of, if you will, elevator pitches I say when they're, because, you know, God forbid you're friendly and you have a relationship with them outside of it, they just assume kind of like it's almost like a dinner, like, oh, I'll get you back. And I'm like, so now I go, okay, we were hiring a lawyer right now. what is their, would you ever make like, this is their hourly rate because they have these qualifications, and you have to pay that bill, whether it's this person paying it, that one, it's you personally, like that bill gets picked up from their hours. You know what I mean?
I've literally never felt more seen. I mean, this is like,
Yes.
oh, it's very frustrating. And I totally hear what you're saying about people assuming that it's a passion project for us. And it's like, this is our livelihood.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I officially mentioned this, but for me, it's mostly the social media jobs that take forever to pay out. It's not modeling. It's taken a long time, but at least they tell you how long it's going to take.
And you also have someone looking out for you.
Yeah.
You know, when you have good, I mean, our best they can at the time representation, because also, you know, you don't get paid until they do. So you have someone else's alternative motive. Like if your agency's like hunting down the check because they want to get paid too. So then they can pay you out. And luckily, if they like you too, they want to just have your back.
Yeah.
But I'm sure with your social media stuff, it's just you.
Yeah. And I've tried to, I mean, I currently have a social media manager, brand new, just trying it out for now. But I was just on my own freelance for a very long time. I was kind of doing my own thing, and yeah, you really just have to chase people down, and it's very frustrating when our job is to be the creative person, the one on set actually doing the artwork, whatever it is, and then you also have to be your own accountant and your own lawyer and go through contracts and use weird email services to find the freaking finance team at a company that you've worked for.
God.
Like I've called up companies like their 1-800 number and been like, I need to get through to the finance department.
No,
Because
you're like a professional, actually, like FBI agent at this point. Like that's what it's like.
I mean, you
Original
too.
MySpace era has trained us when we used to have to IT our own like cool profiles and stuff. It's finally coming in, because it is sad that you do have to. And again, I'm very much, my problem is I try and cut the emotional side, because I'm like, let's keep it a secret as I say it through a microphone. I'm an extremely emotional person with my work too. I mean, that's how you get the effect what I give off. And so it does kind of, you know, I have over 15 years too dancing professionally, growing up doing that. And listen, in dance world, I'm practically a masochist. Like when you have killed it, and like, I mean, you've worked a 16-hour rehearsal day and your director says you didn't suck today, I'm like crying of happiness. I'm like, oh my God, I can live another day. Cause that's like a compliment. That's like, you didn't like soar my eye today. So I'm from that world that like, you got to work for your craft, and like the bar is so high. So I'm not asking for like a bed of roses and like a flower crown. But when you've worked for someone overnight and they've consistently seen you, and not only is like, for what I do, like with interior, am I delivering this beautiful effect? I mean, the before and after speak for themselves. But then when I grab on the number side, and the numbers, I've increased your sales by 89%. That's like unheard of before we've done any promotion. And then you still have an excuse not to like pay.
Was this one of your interior clients?
Yeah, this is currently a situation.
currently?
Where I think this is hot off the press.
Okay.
Still waiting. And, you know, they get to have excuses of things that are happening in other parts of their world. And, you know, I can be understanding to a point, but I feel like it's not just for me anymore. I really use it as like breaking the starving artist, if you will, mold, that I think of someone who doesn't have, you know, a visual effect to, like, you know, when I can sit down in a meeting and direct people's attention, or know what it's like to have to be in front of a big room. Like other people, or even artists, if someone commissioned a painting from someone even in my studio building, and then they just didn't have the means to meet them in person and stand up for themselves, like they're going to get taken advantage of. Yeah. And if we had a dime for every time a creative or an artist has been taken advantage of, I mean, that would pay all the world's problems right there.
Yeah, I know. So true. I wanted to ask you, so when you're going out and getting all these pieces and the paint or whatever else for all of your projects, do you front that money, or do they give you some money to pay for those products?
Yeah, so that's a big lesson I've learned. At first, because it is hard with the deals that I'm getting. I mean, it's like, you know, because I'm having to go, I get special access to like these relationships I've made into these bottom, like you bring a flashlight down to these like abandoned rooms, and I have to find it. And so something, if you cleaned it up that could go for $3,000, I'm getting it for like $200, you know? So when you have to act on that part, at first I was like, you know, I was trying to say like upfront, like we kind of talk about a price, of course, so there's budget. And it's just a learning curve. And so I would get so excited about the project in my first few ones, I would just upfront it, but then they just would slowly, and I'm like thinking they're like, you know, it's like the dancer in me, like the director is going to be excited. Like, look I've saved you. Like I spent, you know, $3,000, but I saved you 12. Like I'm thinking like,
that's incredible.
And the numbers speak for themselves, and I have all the receipts to back it. And so I'm like thinking that's going to get returned right away. And then they don't look at it as a priority. They and then they almost kind of can gaslight and be like, oh, why didn't we going to spend that much? I'm like, wait, it's in the contract, like literally the price.
Yeah.
So now going
so tough.
forward, mark my words, this is proof.
Yes.
If I ever call you stressed, be like, nope, Brian, we're not doing that. I will take a premium because I'm not at a place right now, nor do I want to be, to upfront, because there are, 2 projects that currently I've done that are currently making money from pieces I've not only custom done but built that have not paid me back for me upfronting them. And it's like, I'm not this big company that can just take that bite. I'm like,
because then you've put the upfront money in, you've then put your time in to look for those pieces and to do the project,
and to away from another project and still waiting for a check.
Yeah.
And then the bills don't stop. So you're like, wait, what?
And yeah, that really hit home earlier when you were like, people have rent to pay and things like that. It's like, I have had some really unfortunate situations where I know that this $10,000 check is coming in. Great. Okay. I can kind of chill. That covers me for, I don't know, whatever.
And you're always thinking numbers too. I'm sure you're used to this. So you're thinking like,
Yeah.
okay, that's like, if you will, a form of it. Like you're thinking a safety net as close as you can get to a consistency in our world. Like you're like, great, a double digit check that like you're writing off things on that.
Yeah. And you're told that's going to come in on May 15th or whatever it is. And when that doesn't, and you're banking on it, I've had situations in my life where it's actually like detrimental. Do you know what I mean?
It's too close to home. I mean, not to get too deep, but there was, when you invest emotionally, not into a project too, but when you're planning for a certain amount, like you said it perfect, when it's pulling away from other work or even putting my own time to hustle to do, like I haven't even, launched my campaign for my studio or on all these things, because this big project that took 8 months of my time and all the gaslighting and the money that didn't come from this project, I don't do it just for the money, but when you're accounting for that and you're giving them all your energy, like it took me to a really a place I didn't know you could get dark, to the point of, they always say like, oh, when you're stressed out, it's the worst. And like, I can handle probably too much for a human on the level of stress I normally run on. That's just how I run. But I mean, to the point of like, my hair was falling out in chunks. Didn't even have, too much weight to lose, but like muscle mass was going, because you're feeling behind and you're feeling you're not valued in your work. And it just got to a really dark place where it made me even question even doing this, because it's like, when you're being gaslit too, and someone's like, we love your work, you're the best, blah, blah, blah. It's like, but I'm spending 20 hours at your project, and then you're not living up to what you said that I've annotated and I'm even willing to take, and you keep bending, right? You're like, oh, I'll take this portion of it. But then you're like, do they not expect me to just live? But if this is an office job, no one would hint, you have an HR person right on your back or something. So I'm in a great place where I can look back now, and I'm really grateful for all that, because I wouldn't understand that side, or how people can, take so much advantage of your passion or talents towards something you want to do that they're going to benefit from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's such a tough world.
It is.
Okay, we are going to do some really rapid fire money questions.
Okay, let me blot.
Are we ready?
I mean, let's go.
All right. What is something worth splurging on?
Hiring Ryan James to do your interior. Too much.
Obviously.
Or I would say a really epic vintage silk shirt. I think humans have forgot how good it feels to be in a real fabric.
Ooh.
I push silk shirts, but a well-made silk shirt.
And what is something that is not worth the money, like people spend way too much money on, and you can find for, more inexpensive?
Anything from Amazon.
Is not worth it.
Not worth it at all.
Yeah.
In the form of like, yes, you can grab like, certain things. I guess like, and my mind's just not interior, because that's all my brain is not when I'm thinking of spending. But quick made things like light fixtures. I mean, you can look around this place. I have an obsession with chandeliers and brass finishing. Any like modern made chandelier from Amazon.
And that's why all your vintage stuff is so special too, because you still get something that's, sturdy and well made, but you're able to find it for more inexpensive, and then that saves your clients money.
I'm telling you, just put the work. I said, put the work into it.
Yep.
Like if you can't need to clean it up and that, like to make it something, and it has a story behind it, and you connect. And you can feel that weight and like good texture. Same with a silk shirt, I'm all for a good basic.
I need a silk shirt. I don't have a silk shirt.
I'm going to find you a bomb silk shirt.
Please do.
Absolutely.
Okay. What would you say to somebody who has expensive taste but a tight wallet?
Call me. I'm a big believer, I can totally work with champagne taste on a beer budget. I absolutely. I know, like you had asked earlier, like I try not to put it off because you have to have your self-worth too, but like I know what I do. Like everyone's like, how could anyone like, it looks so extravagant, but I'm like, I'm willing to work with anybody, and especially someone that's going to appreciate it. Oh my gosh, I'll do a backflip into the splits for you. So I think it's just about doing, again, the work to put into something versus just needing like I always, it's kind of bring it back to fashion too.
Absolutely.
Like it's about you can never, I am a big believer is you cannot buy style. You can buy a stylist, but you can't buy true authentic style where I can grab a plastic bag and it's like, you can go buy a Gucci t-shirt that's up for that person that spends $600 on a cotton made, which probably costs them like $1.20 to make. So the markup, you do the math because that's not my thing. Oh yeah, that's how it is. I mean, I'll tell you all the textiles and back thing. But then I would rather go find like a random beat up one or something that you put a little work into and it looks 10 times better than that and it costs you $5.
Yeah.
Well,
not everyone has your skill set.
Well, then just call me, I guess. It just keeps coming back to call me. Call
yeah.
me.
Really quickly, since you said call me, can you quickly pimp yourself out and give your IG or like website wherever people can find you?
Yeah, you can find me. My website's going to launch. It's Ryan, Ryan, James, James, Conover, CONOVER.com to get into my world. There's all my different tabs there, and you can hit me up at the same Instagram, Ryan James Conover.
Beautiful. Easy peasy.
Yeah. Don't forget it.
All right. I have 3 or 4 more fast money questions, and then I'll leave you with the question that I leave every episode on, and then we'll get you out of here, or I'll get out of here. Okay. What is the most expensive piece of clothing you've ever bought?
You gonna put me on the spot like that? Okay. It's not just the piece of clothing. It's the amount of money I spent in tailoring that piece.
Really?
Oh,
because you had to have it and it didn't fit you right or whatever?
Again, it sounds annoying. People are going to eye roll, but everything I wear is custom because I am a believer in, that goes back to the other question of buying cheap, spending your money, and tailoring. This generation has totally forgot that. I'm like, oh my God, it's the best thing you can invest in. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't think it was that much, but yeah, it goes up high. I mean, not to the point of cringe.
If you're comfortable.
Oh no, I mean, definitely I've spent way too much on tailoring, but I've spent like $1,200 just on like tailoring a jacket.
$1,200 just to tailor it.
Just to tailor it.
And then you bought it for
a few hundred.
Okay.
But in my defense, like it would go for way more. But like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it fits you perfectly, and that really does say a lot. I mean, as you said, people don't get their clothes tailored anymore. And oh my God, I'm saying not the same as you, but I often go to Goodwill to find my pants or whatever, and then get them taken out or shortened or whatever else.
Yeah, unless it's more scary of like, on the chandelier front. I don't want to add up how much all of the money I've spent on chandeliers. Next time if like my card declines, I'll just look up at the ceiling and be like, oh, that's why. I'm kidding.
That's funny. Okay. Which of your many businesses has been your biggest financial investment upfront?
Definitely the interior, without a doubt. As far as, because I wouldn't say on the fashion front, like right now I have launching into this summer, I'm actually really excited to get back to, I feel like when I deep dive into one of my sectors, it like takes all my attention. I'm really excited to get back into producing my own sets and actually like low key, maybe next time we catch up, I'll have more news for you on a short film I'm trying to make.
Oh, lovely.
That's a full sidebar, but.
I mean, that's a lot up front to invest in something.
Yeah, so that's a whole other world. I'm, looking for investors and people who believe in the project, which is a whole other segue I'm like, looking into, but definitely with the interior, because like you were asking, like upfronting the costs and even just in the reupholstering, and when I'm having to be at the site to do only what I can do, the hand painted like murals or walls and textures, like if I can find someone that I trust to do the upholstery, or I've already cut the chair down, it all adds up quick. As much as great, amazing deals that I can get, and I'm always looking, like if you might be saving hundreds of dollars, but if you are regularly a day spending like anywhere from $300 to $800, you add that up in 7 days, it's like, I mean,
yeah, oh my God,
and it's the dumbest thing, but people don't understand too how much paint is. Like, go paint just your other wall and stuff. And I get a fabulous designer I'm gonna plug here, Sherwin-Williams is the only way to go. hopefully there'll be a collab sometime in
Sherwin
my
Williams.
life. I'm like, call me Sherwin Williams.
Yeah,
Like, I don't think
reach
anyone's
out.
done this with your paint before.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, they would love to just have your content for their site or their
Let's hope so. I'm gonna send it
Instagram
out.
or whatever. Like,
Yeah, but that's just alone in itself. Like, people go to get one paint color and they're like, wait, what? It's like $80 to $100, and I'm
well,
using
also,
them.
it's shocking how much you need even just to do one wall. I'm like, I thought one bucket was going to be enough. And then
You always think that. I've learned that. I'm like, oh, I can get away with this, but then also I like them so luscious that like the amount of layers and how thick I do it, because it's like it's a difference.
I know this is like textured. There's like splotches on it that are like coming out of the wall. It
All
looks
different,
like.
and that's like, I think, oh gosh, I don't know what I saw in the last interview. Someone asked me. I think it is technically 12 colors. I might have said 14, but I think it's 12. So, and then a few of them are custom. So yeah, paint adds up. Interior.
So how much does this wall cost?
Oh God.
A few hundred.
Yeah, a few hundred easily in paint. Easily.
Yeah.
Like I'd say it's minimally with my discount, like $300 to $400 in paint.
Discount?
Like I get a designer going in there because I work with
Oh,
them a lot. So yeah, they'll
nice.
give me like 35, or sometimes on a good day it's like 50% off.
Nice.
Or if you come in there and the manager's in a real good mood, he'll just be like, I don't know, I shouldn't be dropping this, but he'll just like drop a gallon in there. Or he always sees me, I've come back so many times because there's a quart or you can get a gallon. And he knows that he knew my routine so much where I was like trying to save and get a quart of one color. And he'll just make it a gallon and charge me for a quart, knowing that he's like, then you don't have to come back. And I'm like,
That's nice
thank
of
you.
him. Oh, that's sweet. They're looking out for you.
They're the best. They've been really helpful in this process. So shout out Sherwin Williams.
Yeah. Last question for the rapid fire. Do you have any money managing tips for fellow entrepreneurs who have inconsistent income and are finding clients on their own?
I mean, I feel like I'm about to give myself some advice that I need to listen to
Yes.
as well. First and foremost, I know it sounds cliche, but just be confident in your work, because you are, whatever form you come up to is your bill. Like, look at it as an office job and own that worth, because you are worth it in what you're doing and you know you're going to deliver that. But the best advice I had heard is stretch more than you think every day and save a little every day. Because for those, and it just comes with experience. Like I am still very much in the, like on this side of things, I want the clients to get bigger and bigger as they go. And my dreams, like stars don't even touch how high I can go with my fantasies. And so I'm learning to just be in the moment and put some away. I like literally make a separate account for yourself that you like forget about, as weird as that sounds, and just put a little bit in there, because there are those months, like we said, that like it might sound great to someone, especially I'm sure you get with like a modeling job or a big client, when someone from our world doesn't get it and they're like, wait, you made like 12 or like 20,000, which is big, nice check off of one job. They're thinking like that's crazy, but they're not understanding like you might not get that for when's the next one.
Exactly.
Or like what with taxes and agency fee and what that really accumulates to, or like if you had to get yourself to the location, how much money you upfronted for the project, like all those numbers come into play. So as much as it's just sit down, I'm very a believer in writing it out, not on your phone. Get a pen and paper, get a cute book if it inspires you, and just because you see the numbers. So for me as a visual person, if I see what's being spent and what is like budgeting out, it really helps me.
Yeah.
Has helped me. And
Absolutely. So writing it out, and then you called it stretching and saving wherever you can.
Saving a little bit each day. So if it's just like, even if it's the silliest thing, like I've been really into, the best part, I kind of rigged the system because I am no longer, I've been, fully sober with drinking and anything for almost 2 years. So coffee is my vice, my only vice I have, and delusion, and The Little Mermaid. But no, so I was lucky that I've now designed a coffee shop. So I get, and they have the best coffee, Valentina's. If you're in Ballard, Washington, go visit it. Another plug.
Lovely.
But I got a Keurig here too, and I love to make coffee at home. So I mean, you add that up now, lattes in Seattle are like $8. You add that up by 7, like. It sounds weird, a little number, but just finding little parts you can save. So if maybe you want to get a latte at one day, sure, but maybe the 4 others, do it at home.
Yeah. There's this guy, his name is Ramit Sethi. I don't know if you're familiar. He's a big finance guy, and he wrote the book, How to or creating your rich life or something like that.
Okay.
And he's famous for like that phrase. And what it is basically exactly what you're saying. He says, design your rich life and whatever that looks like. So you're going to want to splurge in certain areas. For me, I always said my rich life would be with travel. Like I want to be able to ride first class or business. That's important to me. I enjoy it. I love it. And that's a luxury thing that I like.
Okay.
But I don't need to be buying clothes. I get a lot of free stuff as an influencer. Thank you. You know, thank the Lord for that.
Well, with that fine body, they better be sending you free stuff.
Thank you. That's very sweet to say to somebody who gained 20 pounds in the last year, by the way.
You've never looked better. Don't even
Thanks.
worry.
Yes.
I know our industry
Side
is
note.
tough on that too.
I try to be transparent about that online and stuff like, yes, had a rough year, put on some weight, but you know.
But how refreshing even is that? We're just, again, not to dog on it too. It's like, I mean, I stand up for any woman too, and from dance background too. It's like not murdering someone. It's not like cheating on your husband. It's like the worst sin we're raised. It's like me just being around a lot of strong women and always inspired by women. It was like, if you gain weight, it's like the most cardinal sin.
We didn't even get into like the body dysmorphia and whatnot in the dance world, the modeling world, you know.
And
it's for another episode because we're running out of time.
We'll do that at Paris Fashion Week, sit in front row.
Exactly. For episode 2.
Yes.
But yeah, just to wrap up that the rich life thing, it's like spend money on the things that you really, really enjoy, splurge on that, let yourself put a lot of money into it, and then completely eliminate the things that don't mean anything to you. I don't remember the last time I bought an actual piece of clothing for myself, and sometimes I don't get the cutest pieces from these clients, but
make it work.
I make it work because I'm not like you where I'm a fashionista and that's like a really big part of me. I'm a little bit more casual in that way. I also don't buy a lot of makeup, and so those are costs. I drive a Nissan Sentra.
Work with it. Hey,
so
my Ford Focus, come through, Dorothy.
Yeah. So it's like I don't care about cars. Yeah. So I'll have a crap car so that I can live my rich life in other areas.
I appreciate you sharing that with me because I feel like that is such a valid point. And what I tell people too when they try and like help out or ask for help on something, I'm like, well, or they think I'm crazy because I'm renting and I did all this work, custom work, but it's like, well, not to bring it to a dark place, but you just never know how long you're here. Where I'm like, well, if I enjoy it and it was my time I invested and it inspires me, then who cares? Like, it's not for everyone, and that each person has their own thing, you know?
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a beautiful way to wrap up this episode. Yeah, that is lovely. I do have to leave you with one last question.
Okay, bring it on.
Which I think I can answer this fully for you.
Okay. Also, sidebar, I love that those are rapid questions, and you should know with me, it's like each one's a 5-minute answer. I'm sorry, anyone listening.
I know, that's hilarious. I was like, not super rapid fire, but you know, it works.
Dramatic, slow motion, Dior Fashion Light.
But it goes with your whole brand. Like, if you want to have good conversation, you can't have short, quick answers.
I try.
You got to invest the time.
It's been too long. That's why we have to keep more in contact. Then they won't be as long.
The question I leave every episode on is this: how much of your success in your career do you attribute to luck, genetics, being a handsome young man, and how much do you attribute to your hard work and dedication and drive?
Ooh, I did not know this is how you ended each one. Yeah, I will 100% say it is all acclaimed to hard work, imagination, drive, and, you know, I say with everything, this is kind of a Ryan James quote, is it's, you know, you need hard work, determination, and don't accept the answer no, and you just need a little bit of pixie dust. And you can take it wherever you want, because from my experience, everyone's going to tell you not to do it, and I think that's why I respect, you know, everything you do and what we've bonded over these years of in the industries and new ones we're jumping into. It's like, why not? I just think the answer, it's like, just go with it. If you can believe it and dream it in your head, you can make it happen. And for me, nope, I don't rely on any of those other fun ones. I wish I had a little more reliant on those first ones you were saying. Great.
So you would say it's 100% hard work, 0% your appearance, your luck in life, whatever else.
I think it cracks me up when people even equate it to appearance, because I'm always a canvas. I've always changed. You know, it's not a sob story, but I'm very much an ugly duckling. I'm still blooming. I just hit into 30s.
You are not an ugly duckling.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry that you feel that way. You are not an ugly duckling.
If you saw my growing up ones, that's why I used it as a canvas. I mean, my nose came in first. I was like 70 pounds and who knows for how long, and then barely hit 100 before like not even senior year. So it was all limbs and but it's like you can use it as a canvas, and that's why I could paint my face to be whatever I wanted. And it's funny now when even like, this is sidebar, but when a client said like, from what I used to be told growing up, that like he's way too wackadoo and like crazy to ever book, when I just got turned down from a really big job because I was too classically handsome. So the irony of that my whole life you work towards it, and I never saw myself that way, that I was like, wow, the world is a funny place. So just believe in what you want to do. But yes, I would acclaim it to hard work and a strong dream.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for
I've loved talking to you, and we'll hang out more in a casual setting too.
You've heard it here. I'm holding her to it, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, absolutely.
And all in between.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Well, congrats on this. I'm so excited to see where everything goes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Signing off.
Signing off.
Mwah.
That's a wrap.